says to him, if you do well, won't you be accepted? Well, there's a hint there, right? It's something like, well, things aren't going so well for you. So the first thing you might think is, you're not doing well. Well, does that mean you're not doing good? Does that not mean you're not acting properly? It means it's the hint, because God is suggesting that if you were doing it properly, you would be successful. I had a friend at one point who was a very bitter person. And he had a bunch of problems, and some of them were self-inflicted, and some of them were fate, I suppose. And he had become very, very destructive, murderously destructive, genocidally destructive, I would say. You could see it in his dreams. And he lived with me for a while. And I knew him very well. He was a friend of mine from the time I was 12 until the time he committed suicide when he was about 40. And when he lived with me, I was trying to help him get on his feet, which was why he had come to live with me, because he thought maybe I could help him get on his feet. And he could only take relatively low-level jobs, like he had some mechanical ability. He didn't get educated, although he's a very, very smart person. He probably had an IQ of about 135 or something like that. He was very smart, and so he was bitter too because he hadn't educated himself to the level that his intellect would have demanded. So he had to take jobs that were beneath him intellectually, and he had that real intellectual arrogance, because he was smart. And really smart people often come to believe that only smart matters, and if they're smart and all that matters is smart, and then the world isn't sort of laying itself at their feet, then they've been terribly betrayed. And then they cling to their intelligence, which is more like a talent or a gift, like it's an idol, a false idol, which is exactly what it is, and a very dangerous one, and get cynical about the stupidity of the world and the fact that their talents weren't properly recognized. And that's just not that helpful, because smart is a good thing, but I'll tell you, if you don't use it properly, it will devour you, just like all arbitrarily assigned talents, right? So you might have a talent, but it's your friend if you use it properly, and if you misuse it, it will be your enemy. And maybe that's how God keeps the cosmic scales adjusted. But anyhow, my friend was a very smart person, although not as smart as he thought he was, unfortunately, but he hadn't done what would have been necessary with that intelligence to make it manifest itself properly in the world, and that also embittered him because he also knew that there was more that he could have done if he would have done it, and perhaps more that he could still do. What I was suggesting to him while he was living with us, because he was, 2 levels from homeless by that point, was that he should find a job that he could find, working in a garage, working in a shop, something like that, because he had some mechanical ability, and that he should separate himself from the arrogance that made him presume that such a job would be beneath him, because at that point no job was beneath him. But more importantly, it's not so obvious that jobs are beneath people, because even if imagine you have a job as a checkout person in a grocery store, it's a fairly unskilled job. You can be some miserable, resentful, horrid bastard doing that job, boy. You can come in there just exuding resentment and bitterness and making mistakes and making sure that every customer that passes by you has a slightly worse day than they need to, right? And pilfering time and perhaps pilfering goods and being resentful about the people who gave you the position because they're above you in the dominance hierarchy, and talking, bad things, gossiping behind the back of your coworkers. It's like you can take your menial position, self-described, and turn that into a very nice little slice of hell. That's for sure. And you go into places like that. I always think of the archetypal diner in that way. You guys have been in this diner. There's a really good opposite diner, and there's a great video on YouTube. It's Tom Waits reading a poem by Bukowski, and I think it's called Nirvana. And it's about a good diner that he happened to visit. Bukowski happened to visit when he was on a bus when he was a kid. A diner where everything was going well. And you could listen to that. It's great. I think it's great. But this is the opposite diner I'm thinking about. So you go into a diner, right? It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and you order some bacon and eggs and some toast, and then you look around in the diner and you think, was like 1975 when the windows were last washed, and there's this kind of thick coating of who gives a damn grease on the walls, you know, and the floor too has got that sort of stickiness that you really have to work at to develop over years, you know. And the waitress she's not happy to be there, and the guy behind the counter isn't happy that happens to be the waitress that he's working with. And then, you know, you walk down the stairs maybe to the washroom, and that's its own little trip. And so you come back and you order your damn eggs and you order your toast and you order your bacon, and then it comes and like the eggs are too cooked on the bottom, so they're kind of brown, and then they're kind of raw on top, and they're cold in the middle, which is, you really have to work to cook an egg like that, man. But you can master that with like 10 years of bitterness. You teach you how to cook an egg like that. And then the toast, here's what you do with the toast, right? You take the white bread, you know, the pre-sliced stuff that no one should ever eat. And then you put that in the toaster and you overcook it. And then you wait, and then you pop it out of the toaster. And then because it's overcooked, you scrape it off. And you knock off the crumbs so it doesn't look too burnt. And then you wait till it's cold. And then you put cold margarine on it, because if you put cold margarine, first of all, not butter, but if you put cold margarine on it, you can also kind of tear holes in it so that then it has lumps of margarine in it, and it's really dry except where it's too greasy. So that's like its own little work of art, man. And then you put that on the side with the eggs, and then you have the potatoes, and this is how you cook the potatoes properly. Yeah. You know, so they're leftover potatoes, and you keep dumping new leftover potatoes into the old leftover potatoes over weeks, and so some of the potatoes they're no longer potatoes, right? They've half returned to Mother Earth. Then you flap them on the grill, and you sort of, I don't know, you burn them a bit, I guess, and then you slap them on the plate, and Jesus, you don't want to eat those, man. That's for sure, and that's the point. And then you have the bacon, and you want to make sure you buy the lowest possible quality bacon. That's how you start. And then you throw it on the grill, and your grill has to be overheated to do this. You have to cook the bacon so that it's raw in places and burnt in other places, and it has that delightful pig-like odor that only really cheap, badly cooked bacon can provide. Or maybe you use those little breakfast sausages that no one in their bloody right mind would let within 15 feet of anything living, you know. And then you serve that, right? And you serve it with the kind of orange juice that is only orange in color. And with coffee that's, what would you say? It was started too early in the morning. That's the first thing. Bad quality coffee started too early in the morning, got cold once or twice and has been reheated. And then you serve that with whitener. It's like, here's your breakfast. It's like, no, man, that's not breakfast. That's hell.